I can confirm the recording has started. I'm just waiting on the live stream. And the live stream is activated as well, Chair.
Okay, so welcome back to the Aberdeenshire Licensing Board. We are on item 7 of our business today. That's a grant of a repeated occasional licence. It's a hearing for Steading Home Farm, Kincawsey Mary Cooter. And the officer taking the report is Deputy Clerk Fiona Stewart. Applicant Christian Stolt. Is he in the meeting?
Chair, I think we'll need to try and get him in. Harriet, do you have information?
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Stott had advised that he was going to be attending the hearing. He's not present currently, but I do have a telephone number to bring him in if the members wish so.
Okay, bring him into the meeting then, please. We'll just wait.
Okay, I will try and call him now. Just calling him now.
Hello, this is...
Hello, Mr. Stolt.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Mr. Stolt. It's Harriet phoning from Aberdeenshire Council Licensing Department. Hi, Christian.
Sure.
Your hearing is due to start just now. Christian, are you still looking to attend the hearing?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm ready. I was expecting a little late. That's fine. Thank you very much for letting me know. I appreciate that.
Not a problem, Mr. Stolt. I will just pop you on mute just now, and it's *6 to unmute yourself when called forward, okay?
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Stolt. Can you please note that the board meeting will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting? And the Licensing Standards Officer, I think, will also be in the meeting. I could see Lisa Godini. I'll just go across first to the Deputy Clerk to confirm the procedure for the hearing.
Thank you. This relates to the most recent applications for occasional licences lodged by Mr. Stolt in relation to the Steading Home Farm, Kincawsey Mary Cooter. Mr. Stolt, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, I'm really sorry if I'm not, had requested the board defer consideration of these applications to allow planning consent to be obtained. However, on consulting with the convener, she took the view that as the board had previously decided that applications beyond February 2025 were to be brought back to the board in order to receive an update on the applicant's progress in applying for a premises licence, the application would not be deferred but brought before the board for consideration today. Previous applications in identical terms have been determined by the board in February, April and August 2024. The full history of occasional licence applications is as set out in section 3.17 of the current board report dating back to December 2021. 8 applications are before the board for consideration today. The procedure is as set out in Appendix 5 to the report. No written submissions have been lodged by the applicant, but as you've heard, he's present today. So the procedure is to hear the applicant, hear from the Licensing Standards Officer, give the applicant an opportunity to respond. Board members may then ask questions of all parties, concluding remarks in reverse order, any legal advice required, and consider whether you need to adjourn or debate in public, and then move to a decision. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. So can I just confirm with Christian Stolt that you're present? Just if you say that you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And are you satisfied
Yes,
that you've
thank you. I'm here.
received? Thank you. Are you satisfied that you've received all of the relevant information? And do you feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes, I'm satisfied and I'm ready.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then can I confirm Lisa Godini, the Licensing Standards Officer, is present, please?
Yes, present.
And are you satisfied that you've received all of the relevant information? And do you feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes to both.
Okay, thank you. So in line with the guidance you've received in the public participant meeting protocol for licensing board hearings, please can you mute your microphone when not speaking if your phone permits this. Please do not speak unless I invite you to do so, and please do not interrupt the other speakers. If you do, you may be removed from the meeting. Once you've been asked to make concluding remarks, you are not entitled to speak again unless to answer a question from a board member. Once the board has made its decision, you will be asked to leave the meeting. If the board requires to adjourn to deliberate the application, the recording of the meeting will be paused and the board will retire to a separate online meeting room. Please wait in the main meeting room until the board members return and I resume the meeting. At that point, the recording of the meeting will be restarted. So we'll begin the hearing. We'll go first of all to yourself, Mr. Stolt, to outline the terms of the applications to the board, and you may wish to address the concerns raised in the representation at this time, although you will get a further opportunity to address the board after the other parties have spoken. So, Mr. Stolt, if you'd like to address the board, please. Are you able to unmute? There you go.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, board. Thank you very much for taking the time looking into my applications. And also thank you to the planning department that has very kindly taken on board my request to get some advice on some of the design aspects of obtaining planning permission and subsequent premises license. So I have sent this a good week ago to the planning pre-application department. Mr. Peter Mason kindly has taken this on board, and I'm looking forward to working with him to addressing the concerns concerning the planning. So the steading is a very old, very solid stone building, very common in Aberdeen farm buildings, and has received a new metal roof last year. I have city water, public water, so it's in quite good condition. I've read very carefully the conditions that are on the public website. I've also spoken with the architect to what is required to bring this up to a standard that is required for employing workers at the premises, and also at receiving some visitors for tours only. I don't have no plans to do any hospitality or anything like it. I just would like to have the opportunity to show visitors around in my premises. It looks very nice, champagne method sided, riddling racks and pressing juice, and it's very visual. So I'd like to receive visitors there as well. So the two points that I have raised with the planning department advice committee is one is the securing of the fermenters. I don't want to go into the details. I've all submitted this in writing. I understand there's a big board here. You may have had a chance to look at that, but that's more for the planning advice folks to advise me on that. So one is the fermenters. What is the required way to secure them, and the second point is I don't have a toilet there at the place, but there's lots of covered building where I can easily make a few walls, make it a cubicle, and install a toilet there. So these two questions are on the table. I have written response from the planning pre-planning advice department that I will receive an answer by the 21st of March, at which point I will go ahead and implement what they have requested, and then go for a planning permission application. I have also one more item is I have also received another room from the landlord, so that would allow me to put the fermenters into that room and secure them there, whatever is the outcome of the advice.
So, Mr. Stoll, I wonder, the issue today is the application for repeated occasional licenses.
Yes.
Would you like to touch on that?
Yes. So I've been saying the previous statement was referring to showing that I've made clear progress towards the premises license. So at the moment I have advice from the pre-planning commission, I will implement those things and apply for planning permission, which is required to get the next step to go towards a premises license. So probably in 3 weeks or so. Then once I have that, I was waiting for that because I don't want to start any works and then later on to find out that is not what is needed.
Okay, thank you. I'll now go to Lisa Gadini, the Licensing Standards Officer, to speak to her representation. Lisa, please.
Thank you very much. So my representation is in relation to 8 occasional licence applications. The first one from the 4th of March 2025, with the 8th running until 23rd of June 2025. The applicant has been applying for occasional licences for their business since March 2022, with the first granted from the 24th of April 2022. So there's been nearly 70 granted occasional licences, with the latest taking effect until the 3rd of March 2025. Similar occasional licence applications for the same premises were heard at the Aberdeenshire Licensing Board, held in February, April and August 2024. It was agreed at the August Board meeting that any further occasional licence applications were to be granted under delegated powers in conjunction with the convener. However, any application beyond today's board meeting date should be brought to a hearing to determine, as well as gaining information from the applicant on how they are progressing with the premises licence application. At the meeting held on the 28th of February 2024, the Licensing Board attached an additional condition to the granted occasional licence where there were no tours of the premises and customers could only collect alcohol orders. This condition was also attached to the licences granted following the April and August board hearings, as well as applications granted under delegated powers prior to the applications in front of you today. In my representation, I have recommended this condition again. However, this condition may be reconsidered depending on the information given to the Licensing Board from the applicant on the suitability of the premises being used for tours. Should the Licensing Board be minded to grant these applications, then in my representation, I have recommended conditions to apply to the granted licences. These are from the pool of local conditions set out by the Licensing Board in addition to Schedule 4, which are attached to all granted occasional licences. These conditions are the same conditions that have been recommended from previous licences and were agreed by the applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Stolt, is there anything you want to add, having heard the submission from the Licensing Standards Officer?
No, I have nothing to add. I think that's a complete picture.
Okay, thank you. I will now ask if board members have any questions for either of the parties. Mr. Menard?
Yeah, just a quick question to the applicant. You've been applying for all of these licenses for a long time now, and you don't seem to be making an awful lot of progress with your plans. You gave us assurances before that you were going to do, speak to planning people, do all this. And yet again, you seem to be just not doing anything with moving forward very fast. Can you give us an explanation why? What's been holding you up?
Okay, Mr. Stolt, are you able to answer?
Yes. Okay, am I unmuted here?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, carry on.
Right. So, I'm a one-man band basically. So doing going through the planning process, and that was quite a bit overwhelming for me. But I have, as you may have seen, a good 10 days ago, I have put in those 2 requests for clarification to the planning department, and the moment I'll receive that, I will act on these recommendations and then submit the required papers to get the planning permission.
Can I just come back there for?
Yes.
Yeah,
sure.
Yes, so I appreciate what you're saying, sir, but to my recollection, the 3 times before last year, you were saying the same thing. You're repeating yourself. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Just being a one-man band does not give you, to my mind, you know what I mean, the reasons not to progress forward. You just seem to be standing still and applying for these licenses constantly all the time. And I just cannot accept that, you know what I mean, you can't make these decisions sooner. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, sir. But I think you clearly see that I am now in the full process of going forward with that.
I think that,
Yeah.
can I come
sorry,
in there? Oh, I was just going to come in there. I think, Mr. Stolt, the point that Mr. Menard's trying to get at here is you have now approached the planning department with an inquiry and you're starting to look at a way forward. This is from 10 days ago. What prevented you from making this contact, say, following the February 2024 licensing board?
Yeah, I don't really have any good excuse for that. So one of the issues that I had is I went around to get quotes for architects and try to get things, and this was like £5,000-6,000 for just making a drawing of a draft. And I finally found somebody who said, this really is not a design issue here. You have two things that need to be designed. Everything else needs to be drafted only. So I was shying away from dishing out that money. That's almost half of what I made in revenue last year. But I agree that there really is no you'd say there is really no reasonable business excuse for being that applying just 10 days ago for that. But that stumbling stone is out of my way now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Menard, were you wanting to come back in?
No, thank you,
Okay.
Chair. You've dealt with it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crowson.
I wonder if I could ask Lisa Gaddini after I read out a bit, just what her opinion is to 3.19. So it says the board's policy provides that such occasional licenses may be granted where there is sufficient evidence that there is movement towards an application for a premises license or a major variation of a premises license. Sorry, that's my Jack Russell in the background. Does the LSO think there is sufficient evidence and that there has been movement towards an application for a premises
That's really
I'm
up for
sorry.
the board. That's
Yeah.
up to the board, Mr. Crowson, not the licensing standards officer.
Okay.
I can give you some facts if
Well,
that is
yeah,
more appropriate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yes,
that's
okay.
what I'm getting to.
My understanding is that we obviously had the board meeting in August 2024, and my understanding is that the following day, the agent for Mr. Stolt submitted a provisional premises license application. So I think that was 22nd of August 2024. From there, I think part of that application was the section 50 for the planning department. And my understanding from that, I wasn't involved, but my understanding from that is that in September 2024, the planning department advised the agent that the section 50 certificate could not be issued due to, it was their opinion that planning permission was required. Change of use for the building from agricultural to a class 4 business use. And when that permission was granted, then they would be in a better position to grant the planning certificate, which is required with the provisional premises license application.
Thank you.
Does that help, Mr. Crowson? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just in case anybody wants to remind me for future when we're looking at the policy wording, it might be good if it was sufficient movement towards an application, not just movement. But thank you.
I'm sorry, Chair, but the policy has been approved by the board, so officers are not able to change the wording in the policy without board approval.
No, I did say for consideration for future.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions from members to either of the parties? No, in that case, I'll go to closing remarks then, starting with Lisa, the Licensing Standards Officer.
No, I've got no further comments to make.
Okay. Mr. Stolt, do you wish to say anything in closing?
No, I think this was an appropriate representation of the situation, and thank you again for mentioning that my application for premises license that I lodged last year was turned down because I needed to put in a change of use from farm building to commercial building. So there was another step that I did not mention when you called me first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do you require any legal advice from the clerk? No. So in that case, will the Deputy Clerk please outline the terms of the legal test for the application, please?
Yes, bear with me while I open the relevant appendix. So the legal test is set out in Appendix 4 of your papers, and that is an occasional licence application has to be determined in line with Section 59 of the Act. And the relevant grounds of refusal are that the premises to which the application relates are excluded. That does not apply here. That the application must be refused under certain sections of the Act. Again, that does not apply here. That the Licensing Board considers the granting of the application would be inconsistent with one or more of the licensing objectives. That may apply here. That having regard to the nature of the activities proposed to be carried on in the premises to which the application relates, the location, character and condition of the premises and the persons likely to frequent the premises, the board considers that the premises are unsuitable for use for the sale of alcohol. And again, that may apply here. So in determining any application, you have to take account of those grounds for refusal, and you also have to take account of any report from the Licensing Standards Officer, which you have as a representation.
Okay, thank you. Do board members wish to retire to deliberate? No, not seen any indication. In that case, I'll open the debate. Mr. Croson?
After the debate, I would be minded to grant the licences because there has been sufficient evidence showing that there's movement towards an application for a premises licence. It doesn't actually state how much movement, but there's been some movement. However we feel about the pace of the movement.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Black, please.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind that granting these licences, which I believe go up to the middle of June, would be recommended. But I would also ask that further licences coming forward would also need to come back to the board, which I believe is 2 days after these licences end.
Okay.
To basically to ensure that movement is carried out and that there is the pressure there to get the licence moving as soon as possible.
Yeah, because I mean, we do the policy on over provision, and it's just from the business's own point of view, I would imagine operating on occasionals going into the future is not a way to operate. Mr. Menard, please.
Yes, I agree with Dawn Black there on that. Like I say, it needs to come back to us again. However, I'm concerned about the lack of movement with regards to the actual suitability of the premises. This is something that we should be looking at further down the line, that if the premises are not suitable, do we carry on granting these licenses? I think, you know, we've given an awful amount of latitude to this, and I know the difficulties that the applicant's facing, but I think he needs to make a bit more pace than what he's doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Back to Ms. Black.
Yeah, on that point, just to also emphasise, we did have a condition on previous licences to say that no tours could take place, so members of the public can actually go into the premises, and I think we should keep those for those very reasons. Thanks.
Yes, I think that would be essential. Any further comments? Okay, I would suggest as well then that, well, we need to first of all just confirm you've received sufficient evidence upon which to make a decision before we go into determination.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that we do grant this latest batch of occasionals, but any further application must come back to the board, and that gives us the opportunity to make sure that there is pace and there is evidence of a movement towards a full premises licence application. Because I think Mr. Stolt knows the steps he has to go through. I mean, he's made a planning inquiry, albeit it's taken quite a while to get to that point, but he has now done that, and he has a date by which he'll get a reply, and he will get advice on things like the first step's going to be change of use, rather than design. The change of use of the premises will be the key thing first of all. So I think he will now get that advice from our planning department and try and move forward. But any more applications, any further need for occasionals, I would suggest comes back to the board. And in agreeing with Ms. Black there, we still leave in that condition that there will be no tours. The public do not enter. They can collect orders only. They're not entering the building, and there's no tours. I would make that a motion, actually. If I have a seconder, Ms. Black.
Yeah, happy to second that.
Okay, is there any amendment? Mr. Adams?
No.
No. Okay, were you wanting to come in?
It was only to second your motion.
All right, okay.
Ms. Black beat me to it.
Okay. Right, so I'll go to the Deputy Clerk, please, just to confirm the motion.
So the motion is that the applications before you today all be granted, subject to the recommended conditions, particularly the additional conditions that were previously in place about no tours and nobody entering the building, and that the future applications come back to the June board. Would that be right, that you want them back to the June board?
Yeah.
Just to keep the pressure on and make sure the applicant is moving forward to lodging a premises licence. I would say that the applicant can lodge a provisional licence based on a planning section 50 only. So that would be regarding the change of use. Although the applicant has said that design is not important, in order to get a full premises licence, he will need to contact building standards and environmental health to get section 50s from them. And design may come into that, particularly with building standards once planning consent is in place. But these are things that can be dealt with once a provisional premises licence has been determined by the board. Are you happy that I've clarified that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing would be for him to note that won't cover. There'll be a couple of days at the end of these occasionals. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 days. The last occasional granted today, if it's granted, expires on the 23rd of June, and the next board is not until the 25th of June. Okay. So the applicant has to be aware of that there is a gap of 2 days. Can I ask the convener if you could confirm that decision is unanimous, please?
Is that a unanimous decision from members? Let me know if you don't agree. No, that decision is unanimous.
So I can confirm that the 8 applications have been granted today, along with the conditions that have been in place on previous applications, and that any future applications for occasionals will be brought back to the June board. You'll receive written notification of the decision within 7 days, and thank you for attending the meeting today. And I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Stolt, for attending, and I can just confirm that this hearing has now concluded. Thank you for your interest in this business, and I will now ask you to leave the meeting.
I will leave. Thank you very much indeed for everybody's time.
Thank you. So our next item today is item 8 on the agenda, which is an application for the grant of a personal licence. The officer taking the report is Barbara Alexander, and the applicant is Kevin Ling. And we should also have Sergeant Neil Grant from Police Scotland in the meeting. We just make sure everybody's admitted to the meeting. Do we have Mr. Ling in the meeting, Harriet? Do we know?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have the live stream on in the background? I did hear some interference. If you do, you'll need to put the sound.
No, I'm just on my phone.
No, there's a little bit of background coming from somewhere, but we'll maybe manage. So, please note that the board meeting will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting. And I'll now ask the Deputy Clerk to confirm the procedure for the hearing.
Actually, this report's going to be taken by my colleague, yes. Barbara, so yeah. I'll hand over to her. Thank you.
Thank you. This application is for a personal licence for applicant Kevin Ling. The application is before the board today because in terms of section 73(3)(b) of the Licensing Scotland Act 2005, the Chief Constable has lodged a notice advising that the applicant has been convicted of a relevant offence under section 51A of the Road Traffic Act 1988, which is for driving a motor vehicle on a road or public place after consuming so much alcohol that the proportion exceeds the prescribed limit. In terms of section 73(4) of the Act, the Chief Constable did not make a recommendation as to whether they considered it necessary to refuse the application for the purposes of any of the licensing objectives, but in terms of section 73(5) opted to provide information in relation to the applicant that they considered as potentially relevant to the board's consideration. In terms of section 73A, the Licensing Standards Officer provided no information. The procedure for the hearing is detailed at Appendix 4 to the report. The board will hear from the applicant, followed by Sergeant Grant. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to address any issues raised. Thereafter, board members will have the opportunity to question both parties, after which the convener will invite concluding remarks from Sergeant Grant, followed by the applicant, with no new evidence to be introduced at this stage. Board members may then deliberate the application and ask for legal advice if required. No written submissions have been lodged and the applicant is present today.
Okay, thank you. So can we just confirm then for the record that the applicant, Kevin Ling, is present?
Yes.
And are you satisfied that you've received all the relevant information and do you feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then can I confirm whether Sergeant Neil Grant is present in the meeting representing Police Scotland? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm present.
And are you satisfied that you've received all the relevant information and feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So in line with the guidance you have received in the public participant meeting protocol for licensing board hearings, please can you mute your microphone when not speaking, if your phone permits this. Please do not speak unless I invite you to do so, and please do not interrupt the other speakers. If you do, you may be removed from the meeting. Once you've been asked to make concluding remarks, you're not entitled to speak again unless to answer a question from a board member. Once the board has made its decision, you will be asked to leave the meeting. If the board requires to adjourn to deliberate the application, the recording of the meeting will be paused and you will be removed from the meeting. On resuming the meeting, the Deputy Clerk will re-invite you into the meeting and the recording will be restarted. So first of all, Mr. Lane, I'm going to go to you to speak to your application, outlining to the board why the application has been made and make any comments in relation to any observation made in respect of the application. So over to you, Mr. Lane, if you'd like to address the board.
Yes, okay, good afternoon. So yes, as you're aware, I was convicted of drink driving. I will note, irrelevant to an extent, but in Appendix 2, there's a discrepancy where it states I was stopped by the police. I wasn't, I was stationary in my car. Regardless,
Oh, have we lost Mr. Lane?
I think we've
we've
lost
lost
Mr.
him,
Lang.
yeah.
We'll need to bring him back in.
Yeah.
I'll just call him.
Sorry.
Oh, Mr.
Oh, there-
Lane?
After the tone. If you'd like to change your message after you've left it, please press.
Would you like me to try and phone again,
You
Chair?
want me to give him a try? Oh, sorry, I was just going to say in case he was trying to call back, maybe. And
Yeah, I think that's maybe what's
Yeah,
happened. I'll just wait.
Yeah,
a
I
little
saw his
bit and then
number
see.
come up, so obviously it's able to connect anyway. There we go, Mr. Lane. Can you hear us, Mr. Lane?
yes, I can, yes.
Yeah, sorry, you dropped out there. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, I don't know what point I dropped out, but I'll pick off from when so I've lost my job, I've lost my license. I was out of work for approximately 5 months. I secured some part-time employment in a bar, where I subsequently applied for my personal license. I've since increased my hours. It's effectively my only point of income at the moment. I carry out the most amount of work hour-wise within the establishment through the part-time workers. And yeah, I was going to say applied for my license, and I didn't leave off, or I left off, if you like, what the conviction, purely because, and I know I'm obviously wrong, but didn't find it relevant because it was a driving offence. And yeah, I'm here obviously today to hopefully gain my personal licence to continue working.
Okay, thank you. Just as long as you understand it's a driving offence, but because it relates to alcohol, that's what makes it relevant.
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
So I'll now go to Sergeant Grant to speak to the police representation.
Thank you and good afternoon. I was addressing the board today in relation to this application for a grant of a personal licence for Kevin Lang. We've done our fit and proper checks in relation to the consultation, and we have one conviction to tell you of. That was on the 15th of February 2024 at Aberdeen Sheriff Court. The applicant was convicted of Section 5 of the Road Traffic Act 1988, that's drink driving. He was fined £1,500 and disqualified for 20 months. The circumstances are that at 15:59 hours on Thursday the 12th of January 2023 on the B999 near to Kingseat, Aberdeenshire, the applicant was seen driving his motor vehicle whilst swerving in the opposing lane repeatedly and in a manner described as erratic. The applicant was stopped by police where he thereafter failed a roadside breath test and was arrested and taken to police custody, where he was subject to another breath test and where he provided a lower reading of 100 micrograms of alcohol in 100 millilitres of breath, the legal limit being 22. He was subsequently caution charged and later convicted. And as I say, there's no recommendation, it's just purely for your information in relation to this application. And with regards to the indiscrepancy, whether he was stopped or not stopped by the police, I'm happy to go with the applicant in saying he was stationary, just repeating what was in the police report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now, Mr. Lane, is there anything you want to say now to respond to the information provided by Police Scotland?
No, thank you for that, and thank you for recognising the discrepancy. There's no reason for me to lie at the end of the day, but no, that's me done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, board members, have you any questions for either of the parties? Mr. Crowson?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. First point, I'd just like to clarify, if you're saying that you were stationary in the vehicle, was this you coming to stop after it says in the reports that the police officer saw you swerving across the road, or are you saying that you never moved the car at all?
No. So it wasn't the police that saw me driving. I was reported by a member of the public. I parked at the end of a dead-end road, until which time then the police came to my car basically and approached me. I could not. The point what I'm going to make is, and it's irrelevant again due to my conviction, but I couldn't prove that I wasn't driving while drunk, basically.
Thank you. And if I could just ask, would it be legal to confirm what is the wording of the question that asks about convictions?
It's a statutory form, Councillor Crowson, so it's in the application form attached as Appendix 1 to the report.
And the wording, if I'm correct, says, do you have any convictions?
Correct.
It doesn't say, do you have any convictions that you think are relevant?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Black, please.
Yeah, thank you. A question to the applicant. I'm just, you said that you're now working in a bar and are doing increased hours, so that's why you wish to apply for a personal license, but you don't actually need a personal license to work in a bar. So can I just ask for a little bit more information about why you feel you need a personal license at the moment?
Well, yeah, as stated, I complete this. There's three of us that do part-time work. I do 15 hours. The other two do between them 10 and 5. I would be currently, if you like, or if given the license, the only one to hold that license that would allow the landlord or premises license holder to effectively have proper time off and not having to be there on a continual basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Barbara, do you want to come in?
Yes, thanks, Convener. It was just to remind board members that while that information might be interesting to know, that it's not actually pertinent to the legal test, and my understanding of what you're looking to decide today is whether or not this applicant is a fit and proper person to hold a personal licence.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for that guidance. Mr. Adams, please.
Possibly a bit of guidance, but I'd like to ask the applicant if he pled guilty or if he was found guilty.
I pled guilty.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Miss Sullivan, please.
I'm having a wee bit of trouble with you're convicted of drunk driving 4 or 5 times the limit 2 years ago, and now you're working in an environment with alcohol. Do you still drink? Do you have a problem with alcohol? Is that why you were drunk driving in the first place? I've had no explanation for this particular incident, whether it's a pattern of behaviour. It concerns me about you being a fit and proper person. So if you could add some more details, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, I could give you the reason that I found myself in my car stationary on that day. But that is irrelevant at the end of the day, because my conviction is what it is, basically. I still occasionally drink, yes. I've never had a problem with drink. I had effectively a breakdown on that day due to mental health issues. I've been out of work due to COVID for a number of, and other various reasons, basically. I'm, as far as I'm concerned, I've had no issues in the last however many months since July in terms of being unfit for work or having any issues while working. So no, I see no reason. You're more than welcome, I'm sure, to maybe get my doctor's notes if you want, but yeah.
No, thank you, Mr. Lang. I think you've been very candid there. I think there's information that we don't need to glean there. Any other questions from members? No. So in that case, I'll just come back to you, Mr. Lang. Have you any concluded remarks you want to make?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Sergeant Grant, is there anything you wish to add?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay. I just did you in the wrong order. Doesn't matter. Board members, do you require any legal advice from the clerk at this stage? Okay, thank you. No advice required. So in that case, can I go, it'll be Barbara, to outline the terms of the legal test for the application, please. And I'll just apologise, the window cleaners appeared at my window and I can't do anything about it.
Thank you, Convener. The legal test is set out in Appendix 3 to the report. In determination of this matter, board members must have regard to the Chief Constable's notice and any information provided to them. If the board are satisfied that either of the grounds of refusal apply, the application must be refused. If the board are not so satisfied, the application must be granted. The grounds for refusal are that, having regard to the licensing objectives, the applicant is not a fit and proper person to be the holder of a licence, or that it is otherwise necessary to refuse the application for the purposes of any of the licensing objectives. I would advise that the Chief Constable's notice did not contain a recommendation as to refusal of the licence having regard to the purposes of the licensing objectives, and that members' determination should be made in consideration of the fit and proper person leg of the test.
Okay, thank you. Do the board wish to retire to deliberate? No, not seeing any indication. In that case, I'll open the matter to members for debate. Mr. Maynard, please.
Yeah, the applicant's been quite upfront with the predicament and the reasoning behind his conviction and everything else. Okay, he made an oversight and not declaring it in the first place, but the police have not made any representation to say that he's not a fit and proper person to hold a personal licence. So to my mind, I'm inclined to give the gentleman to grant his licence, to seek other people's opinion.
Okay, thank you. I would agree, Mr. Maynard. Mr. Crowson.
Sort of my view, having heard other things, I don't consider that there's a pattern of behaviour here, because we've only got notice of one incident that happened over 2 years ago, and there hasn't been any sign of anything else that we've had in front of us. I'm not sure oversight is necessarily the right word to use, because it says quite clearly in the application form, do you have any convictions? You made a decision to choose what was relevant. That would be my only concern, is that, again, in evidence given, He used the word of what he thought was relevant. It's up to us to decide what we think is relevant, which is why we ask probing questions. But my only concern would be is knowing that in holding a license, you have to make choices about things that might happen, incidents that might happen. Is the choice of what you would choose to be relevant or not to report in the future if he's given the responsibility of holding this license. Just sharing my thoughts, see what other people think.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Crowson. Any other members? Ms. Sullivan?
I think that's an interesting point that Jeff's just raised, about a judgment call to either deliberately omit something or somehow believing that a drink driving offence that recently should not be disclosed. Usually in these cases, I err on the side of giving people a second chance, but this drink driving, it could have killed somebody. Being that far over the limit, I don't think it shows proper judgment. I think going and working in an alcohol environment now, so soon afterwards, again, maybe not showing the best judgment. I'm not convinced, but I don't know.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Mr. Adams, please. Oh, sorry, Barbara wanted to come in at that point.
Yeah, thanks, convener. It was just because it was just raised in Miss Sullivan's submissions there, not to frame anything around the language of second chances and, you know, benefit of the doubt, etc., because your decision today is about whether or not they're a fit and proper person today based on the evidence and submissions heard. So I just want to make that point at the outset. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Adams, please.
Yeah, I find myself in alignment with Ms. Sullivan, and I also have some concerns about some of the information supplied by the applicant. He pled guilty and tried in some way to dissuade the extent of his guilt by claiming that he was in a parked car. We do have officers' statements, etc., as part of the case, and I find myself with the level of alcohol, etc., and the responsibility of being a licence holder at the time. And I would support Mel if she was coming down with a motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stewart, please, Fiona.
Just for clarity, that Sergeant Grant did accept the applicant's position on the stationary car in his submissions. So you can't place too much weight on the fact that your wording was the applicant chose to try and persuade you that the vehicle is stationary. Sergeant Grant did indicate in his submissions that what he had presented to the board was what was in the police report, and he was happy to accept the applicant's position on that. So I don't think you can place too much weight on that, Mr. Adams.
Still, the vehicle got from where he was drinking to where he was parked up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, please.
Thank you, convener. I find it a difficult case. On one side, I give credence that Mr. Lang had pled guilty rather than being charged, rather than being accused. But on the other hand, a personal licence holder is a responsible position. It's dealing with the public. It does require judgment, and that particular aspect is quite important in my mind. The unfortunate incident was just over 2 years ago, and that's fairly short. So I'm thinking that I have difficulty in accepting the fit and proper person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crowson, and then I'm going to call for a motion. Mr. Crowson?
Yes, well, I was just going to check where we are in the procedure. Is it beyond our means to call on Mr. Lang to come back in and talk on what he's heard us debate about and give him a chance to
You can ask him a question.
Okay, I shall try and frame it as a question. I'll just go.
Yes, on you go.
Mr. Lang, having heard the discussion that the councillors have been having before you and the concerns around what you decide as being relevant or not and decisions you might have to make while holding a personal licence, how can you reassure us that you would follow out the procedures that would be the conditions of holding a personal licence and follow?
Well, I've held many senior positions within my career, working in the oil and gas industry, managed teams. I've always been very responsible in that positions. I find it no different when it comes to working behind the bar. I take it very seriously in terms of my responsibility in the sale of alcohol, as would hopefully be expected, I guess. I don't know if this is going to be relevant. I actually have the witness statement in front of me just now, and I can read it verbatim if you would like, but I can assure you I was stationary in my car. I cannot prove that I wasn't drunk when I was driving. I've always disputed that, if I'm honest. Like I say, nobody was ever actually interested in what found me in that position. I was trying to look at, again, in terms of being responsible, I will receive, hopefully, my driving licence back in 3 months' time. So, I've gone through the process of reducing my sentence by going through the course, understanding the effects of alcohol, and obviously taking pens for the conviction at the end of the day. But I stand by the fact that I was parked and I was not pulled over by police.
Okay.
Yep.
Does that satisfy you, Mr. Crowson? Yes?
That's enough of an answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just ask a question of Sergeant Grant, because I think we need to clarify this. It is an offence, isn't it, to be in a vehicle, whether you're driving it or not, if you're under the influence?
Yes, that's true. However, just to clarify, he was convicted of the moving offence as opposed to being in charge. That'll be down to the civilian witnesses seen him driving at the time.
Okay, thank you for that clarity, because that point seems to have come up in questions a few times. So that's clear now. So are members satisfied that they've received sufficient evidence upon which to make a decision?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So in that case, I'm going to call for a motion. Anybody willing to come forward with a motion? Mr. Menard, please.
Yes. I find, with the evidence being put before me and statements made by the applicant, I think he's a fit and proper person to be granted a licence and seek a seconder.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Nicholl, are you willing to second?
Yeah, I'm happy to second. Yeah, I think we have heard it was a serious incident, and I think it could have been dangerous to the public. And I don't underestimate that in what we've determined today. I just think it was one incident, and it doesn't display any pattern of behaviour. And I also think the applicant's been quite frank with us about that. So yeah, I've weighted that evidence today, and I would say yes, I would grant the licence as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I would agree with those remarks. Ms. Nicholl, is there any amendment? Mr. Adams?
Yes, I would propose an amendment. The applicant is not a fit and proper person to hold a licence. Thank you, and I seek a seconder.
Oh, and that the personal licence application be refused as part of that. Yeah, okay. Seconder, Ms Sullivan?
Yes, I would
Seconding?
second that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I have a motion proposed and seconded. I have an amendment proposed and seconded. So I'll just go to Ms Alexander, please. Can you just confirm the motion and amendment, please?
Thank you. If I could just come in before that point and clarify that we need more reasoning behind the motion and amendment, and in particular to tie them in with the licensing objectives. Thank you.
Mr. Menard.
I think, like I say, I'm lost for words here. No, like I say, the evidence, the police haven't objected and put forward. The applicant's been quite frank and upfront and honest about his thing. There are a couple of discrepancies, but on the whole, the evidence that's been put before me gives me reason to believe that he is a fit and proper person. Do you need any more than that? Would that be sufficient?
I think if you could just tie into that the applicant is a fit and proper person, having regard to the licensing objectives.
Having regard to the licensing objectives, yes, I think objectives. That's the words I was looking for. I think that would sum it up nicely. Thank you.
And do you want further information for the amendment as well, Mr. Adams?
Yes, please, convener.
Well, just the opposite of that, really, that he doesn't comply with the objectives for holding a licence. I don't think he's been fully transparent with us in terms of the fact was that he pled guilty to the charges, and as the officer said, he was in command of a vehicle at the time of with witness statements, and I don't think he has been truly transparent with us, and therefore I find my position is to refuse it. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have wording there then, Ms Alexander?
Thank you, convener. I would just seek clarity on which of the licensing objectives Councillor Adams is referring to in his amendment, if appropriate. I can give a reminder of them if needed.
Yes, please.
There's the prevention of crime and disorder, securing public safety, preventing public nuisance, protecting and improving public health, and protecting children and young people.
I think there's several that he does there, and I think protecting the public is paramount. Here we have someone who's not taken full accountability of his actions and didn't give us full disclosure. Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Not at the moment, no, sorry. Ms Alexander, have you got the reasoning now?
I'd be happy to summarise to clarify.
Okay, so the motion first.
So the motion sits with Councillor Menard that the applicant is a fit and proper person based on the evidence and submissions heard today, and that there is no risk in terms of the licensing objective in granting his licence. I apologise, I haven't written down who the seconder was there, Harriet. Would you perhaps
Miss Nichol.
Apologies. So that was seconded by Councillor Nichol. The amendment was put forward by Councillor Adams that the applicant is not a fit and proper person based on the evidence and submissions that we've heard today. He does not comply with the licensing objectives, with particular reference to the securing of public safety and the preventing of public nuisance.
And that was seconded by Ms Sullivan.
Oh, apologies, seconded by Ms Sullivan.
Okay, so we would go to the vote. Mr Crowson, your hand's up.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, to be awkward. I just wanted to get reminded of the procedure here. There's a motion and there's an amendment. If I was of a different opinion to both.
Well, you could put in another amendment.
Another amendment, or possibly request that the people moving the motion could accept my proposal. of making it for a period of 1 year?
I'm sorry, you can't do that in
I can't do
liquor.
that.
No.
So I can put in another amendment.
Yes.
So what would your amendment be?
The amendment would be as part of the motion, but for the same reasoning, but with the reasoning of that considerations, the amendment would make me want to make it granted for the period of 1 year.
That's not a competent amendment, because you can only grant the application, which is for 10 years, or refuse the application in line with the legal test, Mr. Crowson. It's different to civic government licenses, which can be granted for a lesser period, but here it's all or nothing, basically.
Right, that's where I'm getting confused then. Okay, my apologies.
Okay. Right, Ms. Sullivan?
I have a question too. If we were to refuse the personal license today, how long is it before they are allowed to reapply?
5 years.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we need to now move to the vote. We've had the motion and amendment clarified. Can we move to the vote, please? Ms. Alexander?
Yeah, thank you, convener. I will take the vote by way of roll call. If you could indicate when your name is called, whether you're for the motion or the amendment. Mr. Stuart Adams.
Amendment.
Ms. Dawn Black.
Motion.
Mr. Jeff Crowson.
Motion.
Mrs. Marion Unson.
Motion.
Mr. Sorry, he's not here. Mr. Mason.
Motion.
Mr. Menard.
Motion.
Mrs. Nichol.
Motion.
Ms. Sullivan.
Amendment.
Mr. Taylor.
Amendment.
Thank you. The motion is carried 6-3 and the licence is granted.
Okay, so you've heard there, Mr. Lane, that your licence is granted today, and that would be the end of the hearing. Thank you so much for attending today, and I just want to thank you for your being so candid with some of the answers to the questions were quite tricky. So you're free now. The hearing has concluded. Thank you for your interest in this business. I will now ask you to leave the meeting. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ling. Your licence was granted.
I can confirm the decision if required, convener.
Okay, Mr. Ling, oh, he's gone. We've missed that step, but I think you read it out.
He understood that the licence was granted, and we can get in touch with him afterwards, and he'll have his decision letter within 7 days as well.
Okay, thank you. Do we require a short comfort break? We don't need to stop at 1 o'clock because it's the licensing board, so I would suggest that we can carry on just to take the last couple of items. Do we need 5 minutes? No, we can carry on. Okay, so item 9.1 is the Equality Mainstreaming and Outcomes Report, and Sarah Rochester is here to take us through the report.
Hello,
welcome, Sarah, over to you.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. What you have before you hopefully is reasonably self-explanatory. It's the process that we're going through from Aberdeenshire Council's perspective to set our new equality outcomes under the public sector equality duty. You will be aware that we as a local authority have obligations under the public sector equality duty to publish a new set of outcomes every 4 years, and the licensing board are listed under the public sector equality duty also as a statutory partner in that process who require to have equality outcomes. The paper before you illustrates a couple of pieces of work that have been taking place. The first one that you see in Appendix 1 is the substantive part of how we got to where we are now. So that piece of work closes off our 2021 to 2025 outcomes. It's got a lot of detail in there about how we have the steps that we have taken to work towards those outcomes, and we will be closing them off with the implementation of this new piece of work. What's also in the papers before you are the proposed outcomes for 25 to 29. Appreciating that currently a lot of what's in there remains at a relatively high level in terms of those outcomes and objectives, and that afterwards officers will be going through a piece of work to make sure that there are very operational but very specific and deliverable and measurable targets and actions that sit underneath each of the outcomes. How we have reached the process of setting the outcomes that we have proposed in the papers in front of you today is as a result of a lot of consultation, and we spend a lot of time, have spent a lot of time with various groups, lived experience groups, for example, other specific focus groups and other affected communities and community groups, to try and draft a set of equality outcomes that are particularly meaningful for our Aberdeenshire communities. But all the information, hopefully, you'll see in the papers in front of you. You will note in section, I'm just getting the information in front of me, section 7 of the reports, there is a section in there covering the work of the Licensing Board, which states that the Licensing Board should set new equality outcomes in conjunction with outcomes set by Aberdeenshire Council to ensure a consistent approach. And so hopefully the papers that are before you and the reports should be reasonably self-explanatory, and I'm happy to note down any comments or take any questions. Just on that, before I move to the questions part, what I will do is I will capture comments that are made today, and I will ensure that they are included in the papers that ultimately move upwards towards full council. So should there be questions in here that I can answer today, I will endeavour to do so. I will also capture any comments that are made into a report that goes up to full council in April, at which point they will be signed off. So there will be full visibility of what has been raised in all the sessions I'm participating in.
Okay, thank you. So now over to members, if you have any questions. Apologies, Ian. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, thanks, convener. Afternoon, Sarah. On page 468, I found it I found it unusual under outcome 1 to be linking both wheelchair disabled use as well as language in the same outcome. And secondly, outcome 2 speaks about digitally connected. The figure of 41% completion of R100 gives me a bit of concern, but I appreciate there are other means of being digitally connected, and I wondered why it's only R100 that's mentioned on there as a measure of being digitally connected.
So thank you for those questions. The outcomes that you have before you at that section in pages 467, 468 onwards are the ones which were set back in 2021. And so it would be my understanding that specifically the R100 programme being drawn out was something that was of particular importance and relevance when those outcomes were set in 2021. I can go back. Sorry, the dog's having a shout at nothing. I can go back through some of that paperwork and the feedback and find out why R100 rather than any others were set or were particularly drawn out in the outcome back in 2021. But that was certainly the action that was taken back then. And also, your first question was around wheelchairs.
Wheelchair and language being taken together as opposed to being separately.
I think it's because I think, again, in terms of not having been around this piece of work in 2021 specifically, because that outcome specifically references disabilities and within that, the actions have to take account of a range of disabilities, whether that is to do with interpretation, access to information, physical access to spaces. So the outcome is the actions underneath the outcomes are trying to deliver improvements for people with a range of disabilities, no matter what they are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions from members? No. So what we're actually being asked to do, let's go back to the first page again. The recommendations on page 466. The board are asked to consider and comment on the progress made towards meeting the public sector equality duty as set out in the Equality Mainstreaming Outcomes Report 2021-25, attached as Appendix 1 to the report. So on that, what would we like to go forward to full council? So we've considered the progress made towards meeting the public sector equality duty as set out in Appendix 1. Does the board wish to make any comments? Mr. Menard? Yeah, only to note that we have to have our own equalities thing, and it may differ to the councils at times. Do you want to clarify that maybe? Well, how can I put it? I mean, we have to look at things in from a different perspective with regards to licensing. If you know where I'm coming from, if you can get the meaning of that. Fiona's wanting to come in. I'll see if she can help. Miss Stewart, please. I can help, and I can perhaps help Sarah because she has not been involved previously. That the licensing board is classed as a separate public authority, as is the education authority for the purposes of the equalities legislation. So it's not the fact that the board does things differently and has different legal tests. We are required as a public body to have a policy and outcomes, as is Aberdeenshire Council, as is Aberdeenshire Council as the education authority. And we have worked in the past together as three public bodies to set joint equality outcomes that would cover all three bodies moving forward. Now, that has not been able to happen this past year, and what I can say is we will be able to comply with some of the equalities outcomes that the council is setting, but not a lot of them, because the board does not employ any staff. The staff are subject to the council's equality outcomes, which is why the next report is on the table, and we will set joint outcomes where we can comply, and we will set our own equality outcomes for things that we need to do as a licensing board. But the duty is the same for the board, the council, and the council as education authority, which is why we try and take a joint approach. And we'll be hoping, if Sarah is agreeable, to tap in to a lot of the consultation and a lot of the evidence that she has produced to achieve our own update policy and our own equality outcomes, rather than going out to consult on exactly the same things over again. So perhaps that puts it in perspective for you, Mr. Maynard. Thank you so much, Fiona. Yeah. Oh, better said than I can put it. That's clear. Yeah. Okay, so Sarah frantically writing all that down. So that would be our comments going forward.
Fantastic. I will ensure that those comments are included in the report that goes forward, and very happy, Fiona, for yourself and others to make contact with the team around utilising as much of that shared resource as we can for the board to also go forward. Okay, thank you. So if there's no further comments or questions for Sarah, say thank you for attending today, Sarah. You've had a long wait
during the meeting?
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Chair,
thank you.
Chair,
Fiona?
one other thing, there is a second recommendation to agree to the quality outcomes. As I've said, we can't comply with them all. So I would suggest the board uses the wording that they will comply with these outcomes wherever it is capable of doing so, subject to the board's review of its own equality policy and equality outcomes, because we will certainly use the ones that we can comply with as joint equality outcomes for the next 4-year period. So if that's agreeable to the board, that's the wording I would suggest.
Agreed.
Yeah, we agree the wording.
Would you put that wording over to me just in a quick message, Fiona, because I wasn't fast enough at scribbling that bit down. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'll include that as well. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so now we go on to item 9.2, review of the board's equality policy and equality outcomes. That's on page 614. I'll get to the right page in my papers.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've said most of what needs to be said for this in the previous report. What you have before you is our current policy and equality outcomes. Clark has been busy working on a draft update policy and new equality outcomes. We have to have equality outcomes in place by April this year, and it just so happens our board is on the 30th of April. So I'm asking for authorisation from the board to update our policy, set equality outcomes, do a brief consultation on them. As you've heard, we'll try and tap into the good work that's been done by Sarah's team, so that we're not duplicating consultation, and to authorise us to bring back a final report to you at the April board. And if the board's so minded, to ask us to liaise with the convener on the final wording of the draft that we're going to consult on, if that's okay.
Okay, so that's a delegation. So we'll just go through the recommendations. And the first one is just for the members to note the requirement to review the policy and outcomes. The second one is for members to authorise officers to conduct a review. I'll come to questions in a minute. And then the third recommendation, asking members to note that the revised policy and outcomes will come back to the April board meeting for approval, conveniently timed. Ms. Black, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say I totally agree with Fiona's suggestion. I'm very content to approve those recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Menard.
Yeah, just page 624, bottom left hand corner. Could we have a change of convener picture, please? Because I don't think Mr. Topping no longer.
I did say that was the existing policy that is in the report. So yes, I'm sure Clark will confirm he's already changed that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we look a bit different now. Clark.
I can't confirm it has been changed.
Thank you for that. Okay. So we're happy with the recommendations there, and the work will be done, the review will take place, and then we should be able to see the draft and be able to look at it at the April board. So item 10 is the date of the next meeting, which will be the 30th of April. Can we note the date? And that can now confirm that the meeting has concluded and the recording will be stopped. Thank you for your interest in this business and your participation in the meeting today. I'll just pause for the